Second by Tom. All in favor? We're unanimous. We have two walk-ins, so we'll start with Jody Sias. Please come up. Morning.
Wait, Jody, I believe is an executive. Did you want to do Jason's first really quick since it's open?
We can do that. Thank you, Jody. Morning, Jason.
Morning, Council. Oh, sitting on the floor. Yeehaw. Good morning. Just back again to check in, and Nellie joined me here today, just following up on where we've been in the past. In thoughts when I left after the last time I was here, I guess one of the questions I've never asked in the time I've been in here is in regards to how does a tribal member or anyone influence the tribe's priorities as far as like our Lee Powwow grounds? Is there like a strategic planning process that the tribal council goes through at departments, or is there some type of way that, I mean, I'm just trying to understand how we get this moving forward as far as a priority of the tribe, because I'm just going to keep coming until somebody tells me not to come anymore or whatever. I don't know. But I just think this is too important of an issue just to let go. And Nellie's with me today. Cornell, sorry. We grew up and he was Nellie growing up, but Cornell's here and he has some concerns now too with, you know, just some information, some rumors of possible, well, I'll leave it up to you. So that's what I wanted to ask today. You know, is there a plan? I know last time we talked about the lands committee possibly meeting and following up on this. I didn't get any calls or emails if that was supposed to happen or not. I didn't see anything on that regard. So, and I know some of you are on that committee, I understand, and was going to meet with them after our last meeting. So I don't know. I mean, if that doesn't involve me, that's fine. I just want to kind of know what's going on.
No, you actually had suggested getting a specific committee for the powwow, and that was stated to lands, but I haven't heard anything back on any movement to do that yet. Anybody else has. But we will see them again today.
Okay.
Greg?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I have two questions, I guess. One is, given the fact that we're already into March, what can be done before this year's celebration? The second question is, what needs to be done in the following year, because the inputs into the tribal budget process for the following year will be happening over the next couple, 2 or 3 months. So we just need to include that in the discussion, but we'll need some kind of a number in order to do that.
Well, I'll turn that over to Cornell because he'd heard some information about this year's funding specifically.
Oh, good morning. Yeah, just on that maintenance part of it, we heard that we was only getting the 50,000 down there towards maintenance towards our Lee Powwow grounds, and I thought it was 100,000 down there, but our main concern down there for this year was our vending, our vending areas down there. That was our main concern, was getting those put in and getting extended down there, because our facility now, where our vendors are, is not enough room in that little horseshoe down there. We're overcrowding, and last year I think we had 55 or 60 some vendors, in Arley, and And I talked to my sister this morning, she already has 20 confirmed, you know, for this year, since our poster went out 2 days ago. Our save the date poster went out, and so her phone's been ringing for those things, but that's our main concern was just, you know, if we can get that area down there, you know, extended this year, and it's already March, so, you know, the ground's gonna be tore up and rough, so if they don't, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I think we've been talking for, ever since I got on committee for years, that this is gonna happen and nothing's ever, you know. I think Arlee's you know, like we said, it's a heart of our reservation here, and our powwows once a year, and I think it's this time that we need to, you know, get it taken care of down there right and make the funding available for it. So, but that's why it's my main concern that, you know, Elmo has a brand new facility up there and sidewalks and nice restrooms and everything like that, and I think it's time that we do the same for ours down there. Let's get it up to date. Thanks.
As far as, I mean, we did produce a list last fall in regards to all the concerns. We did have one meeting, the committee, and I put a list together but this isn't just what can happen now. It's kind of the big picture, but there are issues in here that, I mean, we address every year, you know, restrooms and when that bathroom goes down, and it has a tendency to do that every year, we're scrambling, you know. The electrical issues come up pretty much every year. Water issues come up pretty much every year. So there's ongoing things that could start happening now that could get fixed and taken a look at, you know, if even at, you know, let's spend the 50. Let's go there and see what we get with that. But I mean, again, like I mentioned previously, this shouldn't be a responsibility of the powwow committee. These are tribal facilities. The tribe owns the ground and the facilities there. And, you know, I don't know. I'll shut up.
Bang, and then Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was talking to Cornell about this here about a month ago or so, and I informed him that Lands came in and talked to us about this, and they were telling what they had planned about putting those toilets around the arbor up there for the elders, those cement toilets. We're gonna put 4 of them around there for the elders. So that's one plan he got for the bathrooms. But even though they have those around, it's still not going to be enough for the people that come there for that powwow. Even though with the toilets that Quinnell gets from the vendors that they bring in, I don't think we had enough of them last year, but that still cost quite a bit of money for them to bring that in. That was how many thousand, Quinnell, was that?
Last year was 8,500, and this year we're looking at 12,500 for them. They said the ones he brought in last year was just not enough for the people, you know, that they couldn't keep up with them. So you have to bring in more this year.
So that's going to be an additional expense to them on this, you know, and it's just the idea of not knowing if Lands is going to get all this done, because usually it's a 2-week deal before the powwow starts, before anything starts getting done down there, as it has been in the past few years. But hopefully we get this stage get started on it earlier, you know, this year. But Cordell was talking to me about those vendors, and he wanted some of them hookups out there, more hookups out there put in. And if they do, I know that's going to be another expense for them. So there's a lot of things that need to be done down there, but I don't know about the funding they have. That's just gonna be enough to get those things done for them. But it's just the idea of, you know, scary to find out if, anything like if we're gonna get anything done down there at the Powell grounds again and wait to the last minute for things to happen again, you know, is, kind of a pain in the tail, really. But, you know, it's just a idea of hopefully that things do get done for them and they come in here every year to let them know what's going to happen and Mark and them come in and tell us what's going to happen. But fence is supposed to be moved and everything else, but nothing else that hasn't been happened yet. But hopefully that they'll figure that fence out and move that fence. But I guess we'll just have to see what's going to happen there. But that's some of the ideas that they brought in, Jason. So there might have been a couple of other ones that I'm missing, but I know that that was two.
Go ahead, Martin, then I have Carol, and then I have Greg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Jason, Cornell. Honestly, how Elmo got all that done was that they had a squeaky wheel that was on them every week or every day at times. And that's all the improvements that Elmo got in the last 2 years. That's how it got done. They were in SKMM's ear. They were in Johnny Nice's ear. And look at what got done. So that's what I would do. And if you could share a clean copy for Greg and Jamie, that'd be great. You know, because I'm like you guys. I grew up in Arley, and growing up, that was the best powwow in the world. You know, as you get older, you realize probably there might be bigger and better out there, but you know, for a little kid from Arley, that's what it was. And so we need bigger and better. You know, the funding for the Elmo Powwow grounds was from mitigation from those power lines, which is crazy because they're still under the power lines. Sorry, different thing, but you know, we got to figure out a way to do it. And if it's us paying for it, let's figure that out. We throw things around like travel plazas and other things. This is our showcase for the year. And, a lot of people see this, but be a squeaky wheel, get you their numbers.
Go ahead, Carol.
What baffles me is that, we have Mr. Matt in place and he doesn't know the process well enough. And, he's got strength, but he doesn't have enough to really bulldoze his way through. So we need to really appoint a point person, somebody that's strong, Jason, and get it done. I mean, you guys know what needs to be done, right? So bring forward a budget and let's approve it and let's get it done. I mean, until we have somebody that's really, and you are willing to step up, I'm not saying that you're not, but what's upsetting is that we just keep, council, come on, we need to put somebody in place because there's nobody. I mean, the powwow committee's doing the best they can, but they feel like they're powerless. I mean, I think if the powwow committee was to grab it by the tail and say, okay, we need this, this, and this, and we can't do the pavilion this year, but we're gonna get it done next year. And get us some, we'll get you some money so you can do a site plan and we can authorize some funding. Until we have that, we can't authorize funding for just, okay, we'll go do this or do that. Tell us what you need done. We'll get the money.
Greg.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm guessing that part of the problem here that you've been experiencing to date is the fact that there are several tribal entities, whether it's tribal lands or tribal health or, different people that are involved and different accommodations, if you will, need to be made for each of those things in order to pull off what would otherwise be a simple project is fairly complicated because of the number of people involved. Am I understanding that to be correct? And if so, I would like to make a motion to direct all appropriate tribal entities, from tribal lands to tribal maintenance to tribal health, anybody that is going to be involved or have a stake in the powwow grounds for this upcoming year, to meet with Jason and the powwow committee, if they so choose, and come up with a listing of those things that need to be done for this year, as well as come up with a budget for the following year. And I would like that meeting to be done by the end of this month. So the motion is to, by the end of this month, pull everybody together to meet with Jason and the powwow committee to come up with the plan.
Pardon?
You're the new chair? Who's the chair? Ron?
Yeah, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Jason, for coming in. Really appreciate it. And Q, thank you for the good work you've done, and you and everybody, Ronnie and everything, for keeping it going. The issue that always has been here is that, you know, I'm gonna build a house. I'm gonna put a timeline together, and I'm gonna have project components and deadlines. You know, milestones. As in, okay, we're gonna go dig the ditch. Got to have it done by May. We're going to go lay in the power to the house, and that's going to be done by the end of June. And those timelines, project timelines, and those are the things that I don't know how many times Bing and I have brought that forward. How come you're not doing this? How come you're not? Where's your project work? Get on this, because you're waiting for the last day. So what we miss all the time is annual work plans with project milestone and elements that they have to report to and be done, because that's what makes people accountable. And the accountability here is that's what's missing. We can plan and do it, and I agree with Greg that that's what needs to happen, but inserting into that a project timeline and deliverables that need to be met. If you can't meet it yet, come back in, give a monthly report, whatever it takes, adjust, adapt your action plan. But that makes people accountable. And we know that things are moving, because that's what historically has been our problem, is that we can have a great plan or a great idea, and hey, you department, go out and get her done. And then they don't get her done. And they have excuse or this or that, but it really has to have some milestones in it, that we do this or that. Like, you know, this was a heck of a warm winter, unfortunately warm, and warmest on record. And it's troubling, but it was great for construction. Great for construction season. So a lot of things, you know, all that work should have started last fall to expand the concession area. And that's what we were always bugging them. Hey, how come you're not doing this right after the powwow's done? You know, start working on it again. And let's get it done. The other things is that I've always championed is utilization of the facility more than just one thing, because that's another thing. If you're not there, you're not using it. It's that absenteeism allows things, unfortunately, to happen. And negligence and neglect can happen because of that absenteeism. So I would always champion that. I think that's what you had in some of your ideas that you brought forward, Jason, was other uses and things like that. So, but really what we need is a work plan that has milestones in it, that we can get things done and make them accountable. And if it's in the lands department, which I thought it was, then that's where it should be. And, you know, Greg can do his best to provide funding for us. I mean, he does his job, but that's not his job to go out there and build that thing or maintain it. So the powwow committee, for me, should be the one putting on the powwow. It's the powwow, it's the event, and your effort should be just for that. And I agree that the facility is ours. It's our negligence that it's not in the premier standard that it should be. And it starts right here with this board of 10, and it should work its way down. So I would second Greg's motion, but add, if I would, that there would be a project timeline provided with that, when something is set up, that would be make people accountable to implement.
Could we add council involvement in that little committee there?
I think monthly reports would be required.
And a council person sits in that meeting?
I think that's important as well for someone from.
They volunteered
this body
to
be
work
there.
with Jason. I know I did.
Danielle.
Oh, Jason, I just appreciate your consistency in coming back and keeping us on top of this. And it's working. We're gonna find a way forward. Without that master plan, it feels like we just keep band-aiding things and saying, well, we'll do this next year. Or, we're just gonna fix this to get us through until we know what we're gonna do with it. And I think you have the strength there and the history, the background and the skill set to really help move us forward. So I appreciate you stepping up and helping us make this happen. And unfortunately we're coming into another year and we're not going to have it the way you want it or the way we want it. I say it's better than Christmas for me because I get to see all my family. That's when my family comes together. It's my happy time of the year to go enjoy our leave. But the showers, those probably won't be fixed again this year. We still had troubles last year with them, the water issue that's there. But I'm hoping the coordination with other programs, I would hope to see the center stay open, our community center there in Arlie, stay open for access to extra showers. And that's that coordination piece that is sometimes missing. And I think we're going to be able to get ahead of it this year. I really enjoyed your idea about portable propane heaters for the elders there in the elder seating section for when it's cold, a place for them to kind of find some respite and get warm. And yeah, I've hung on to it and I keep jotting down little notes on what you provided. And just thank you for all your help with this and the committee for staying on top of things.
We got a motion by Greg that all parts of our organization that have some stake in the Arlie celebration grounds come together and meet with Jason and the Arlie powwow committee to create a strategic plan for this year as well as long-term before the end of the month. Seconded by Tom. Do I have that motion right? All in favor? We're unanimous. So we'll identify the players and if you can figure out a good date before the end of the month, get together, maybe 2 this month.
I just wanted to mention, I think I made mention of it previously, the tribe has, I think there's the eight priorities or there's in cultural, and those are supposed to be distributed through all the entities of the tribe. I would think that no entity would be excluded from this committee because they have to meet those 8 requirements, right, for the tribe. And so culture is a big part of that. And this is who we are as Salish Kootenai people and Pondere people is, our celebrations are pretty significant for us. So at least on the south end, I would think that we would have every department. I mentioned this earlier, 20 years ago or so, departments used to have a piece of everything. The Salish Kootenai Housing Authority, we had to take care of the water and the water system. We winterize that in the fall. We'd get it ready to go in the spring, and then we paid for showers, portable showers back then because the showers weren't reliable. Well, very similar to today. But the programs all pitched in and had a responsibility. I think it was $5,000 or $10,000 per department back then that had to show some contribution towards the powwow. I think I've asked that before. What happened to that commitment back then? Did it just kind of fade away, or is it still something that departments are supposed to contribute to? Because I mentioned this, I think last time I was here, I was at Fort Hall, and they make it a priority for all their departments to have a piece of that event. They sponsor different dances and different specials and different things, or food or whatever. They're all involved. It's all hands on deck. So hopefully we can get there from here. Anyway, thank you for your time. I will get this original discussion items list sent. I realized that last time we had some new people and probably haven't seen that yet. So I'll get that resent to the council. And then I'll get to work and wait to hear on, when the committee moves and how that works.
Great.
Yeah, Greg Spar just left to take a phone call, but given the budget implications here, I would like him to be your primary point of contact, if that's all right with you, Mr. Chairman, so that the meeting can happen. He can schedule with the rest of the tribal of organization, get the right people there, and then he can work with you on the scheduling.
Does that include the corporations too then? I mean, they're potentially the ones with some deep pockets.
Yep. I think so.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. I'll be back on April 3rd. See you then. All right. Bye-bye.
Can we go into executive?
We will go out of regular into executive.
I'm sorry, couldn't make that in person, but happy to present some information via Zoom this morning. So I'll kick it off and then I'll hand it over to Casey. And we have in front of you a contract with Michael Billington. And so if you look on page 2 of your packet, you should see the scope of work that we're going to be asking for at the end of this. But I wanted to give just an introduction and some background information before we get to that. I know probably our newest members of council know quite a bit about food sovereignty and what we've been up to, but I just wanted to give a brief history and kind of what led us to where we're at today. So in 2019, the food sovereignty team was established by tribal council. And so that included me, Casey, Joel Claremont, Josh Brown, and Amara Webster. And we just have different skill sets we brought to the team. And then the original plan was for us to go to different NCAI food sovereignty symposia around the country. We went to the first one, COVID hit, and then everything shut down. So we thought that was kind of a disaster, stalled all of our work, the end. But in actuality, what ended up happening was we got quite a bit of federal funds infused through the CARES Act, and Tribal Council assigned a bucket of funding to food security. That was one of the purpose areas of the CARES Act that was allowable. And so food security is what the food sovereignty team was assigned to roll out a plan for. With food security, we were trying to figure out what to spend our money on. We, like I said, went to one symposia at Choctaw, Mississippi. And so just thinking, what could we spend money on? We thought perhaps we could buy a farm and start food production. And then come to find out there were some pretty tight parameters on the CARES Act funding. So we had to put that idea away pretty quickly. And we ended up on really infrastructure development. So we went up and down the reservation. Trina Fiant and Jack Helmsing really supported that work, talked with cooks at each of the community centers or senior centers, and upgraded a facility. So it was really good for food storage, food prep, food distribution. So we were fixing roofs, fixing stairs, fixing ovens, fixing fridges, things like that. And then we stumbled upon Kicking Horse, which at that point in time was abandoned. The old cafeteria had been gutted. The roof was caving in. It was leaking. It was in pretty bad shape. So we used a lot of the funding there to fix the roof, to redesign all of the kitchen equipment. It has commercial kitchen equipment in there now. And we ended up doing a food distribution out of there. So we got a box truck and some a forklift, other equipment. I remember when we purchased the food for our first food distribution, it was pretty chaotic. We just had a bunch of boxes, seemed like up to the ceiling in there, and we're putting a bunch of food in there. One thing I wanted to mention from that history, though, is when we were looking at a farm, former Councilman Shelley Fiant recommended that we talk to Michael Billington. He's really knowledgeable about seeds, growing food, food systems. And so we had a conversation with him. He was introduced to the food sovereignty team. Everyone really appreciated his skill set. And so we thought, yeah, this guy really knows his stuff. He's legit. Unfortunately, we just went a different direction at that point in time. Several years later, we ended up getting Headwaters funding to really start the food sovereignty program. And so you're all familiar with that. We wondered kind of how to start, we said, well, let's start with the elders. So we started with the elders soup program, which today serves over 200 elders, fresh homemade soups. We give them 2 soups per week. We distribute that right to their doors. And so that's a really good program that a lot of people gotten a lot of really good feedback from. We got another grant to really start local food program. And so the local foods program includes the gardening and then the hunting. The hunting, of course, as you all know, is really important not only to get foods out to the communities. We put the game a lot of times in the soups or distribute that with the soups. We have dry meat socials, but it's also really a good tool that we utilize with the Natural Resources Department to really support big game management, which has been an issue at the legislature for the past several years. So that's a good one, not only for our getting those really good traditional foods in our food system, but to really defending our tribal sovereignty and treaty rights. And then, of course, we still do food distributions pretty regularly. And then we have some other grants to do quite a bit of education. And it's really been a hub for workforce development for WIOA workers, voc rehab workers. We've got some AmeriCorps workers out there now, summer youth programs. So we've been just continuing to capacity build and grow the program over the past several years. And then it was about a year and some ago, maybe a little bit longer, that the tribe purchased Bison Springs Ranch. And so the question has always been like, does food sovereignty want the Bison Springs Ranch? And if so, what are you going to do with it? So we applied for a Native American Ag Fund grant 2 cycles ago, didn't get it. So we gave another crack at it last year. Michael did support us on writing that grant. And it took some time before we heard the outcome. And we said, well, we can't wait to hear if we get it or not. So we need to get some preliminary work started. We reached out to Michael, who works very closely with Tim Ryan, who, as you probably all know, is the Department Head of Culture and Language Studies of Native American Studies at SKC. They work pretty regularly on projects. And so we contracted with both of those guys on very small contracts. I, of course, talked to council about that, and they did some really good preliminary work. So I'm glad that that map is up there so you can see the Bison Springs Ranch and you can see the house and I think the barn there. And so there's several different fields that have been identified there, and it covers those a little bit further down in the packets, which we'll get to here in a bit. So Michael and Tim met with the food sovereignty team, Dana, Tony, Sadie from SQCC. We had a really good meeting out there. We had some good discussions and we got those guys rolling. And so Michael did some really good groundwork on soil sampling, which isn't great, and just identified the different areas. So my directions are terrible, but it goes into pretty good explanation in his summary. But then when you see that slope at the bottom of the picture there, that Casey might be able to tell you better than me, I think is just thousands of acres of tribal land, but right behind there is a really good source of traditional foods. And so Tim was like a kid in a candy store going up there and just actually munching on things that I thought that was great and fun. And so really the idea, a lot of ideas are out there. And then we did end up getting the Native American Ag Fund grant. So the Native American Ag Fund grant is $250,000 over 2 years, and we built into the grant positions for 2 contractors. And so the idea would be just to continue going with the work that we've already started with both Tim and Michael. Tim is a little bit of a different story because he would like to continue his work under the SKC umbrella. And so that would probably be structured more as an MOA. And so that's just something we can do outside of this process today with council, but sure wanted to let you guys know that that would be the plan to work in tandem, continue to work in tandem with Michael and Tim. And so Tim's scope of work would really be to act as sort of a cultural liaison with the culture committees to make sure what we're doing out there is appropriate culturally, inventory and mapping of the native grasses and forest lands, prepare soils, make sure the weeds are taken care of, and then really providing educational opportunities and thinking about how to do that to the greater community and also to his SKC students. Michael, on the other hand, we're hoping can continue with the work he's already started and continuing to develop growing operations out there. And so we can start getting into a bit more of that with the rest of the packet. But I'll turn it over to Casey to see what else he has to add.
Yeah, Lum's Jordan, I appreciate that. As Jordan mentioned, Tim has done a great job helping us out so far. Tim, in addition to the work that Jordan talked about, also helped us with a cultural ecology report, as well as developing a draft action plan that would help us for the next couple of years of activities at the Bison Springs Ranch. And that plan is really good. It's really high level. It's really visionary. And so to help put that vision into action, we think that Michael Billington and working with him helps us to develop a plan of action. As Jordan mentioned, he always does exceptional work with us, and we've really appreciated the work that he's done for CSKT so far. So our ask today for Tribal Council, controlling a couple screens here, go back to page 2, is we are respectfully requesting the ability to enter into sole source negotiations with Michael Billington, and specifically that would be to perform the scope of work that is included in page 2 of your packet.
Jamie, go ahead.
I have a couple questions. The first one, I was talking with Dana about something else, and I just had mentioned that this Bison Springs that you had come in, Jordan. Is there a reason that she's not here since she's the food sovereignty director or whatever?
Yeah. Right now, the food sovereignty team is really tasked with developing kind of the big picture food sovereignty approach for the tribes. And so a part of that approach is the food sovereignty pilot program, which Dana is the program manager of. So like I said, they do really good things like the Elder Soup program, local food and gardening, hunting, food distribution, education. But at the same time, the food sovereignty team is also thinking about kind of a like big picture Department of Agriculture. What does that look like? Potential corporate structures. What's going to be corporate? What's going to be governmental? And so one idea is that potentially Bison Springs could develop commercial products. And so that could be a commercial project that could develop into a corporation. And so we do have Dana as probably being the ranch manager and just making sure that things are going according to plan out there. But this grant and then the relationship with Michael Billington would really be under the food sovereignty team and not necessarily under the food sovereignty program. Of course, all working together.
Okay, well, my own viewpoint, I think she should have been here. Secondly, I went through this thing and I seen all the what you're asking for, and I think it looks great. I think it's wonderful. But has this? I don't see like a contract or anything in there. Has this gone through contracts and grants?
Yeah, I talked to Nori, and so the main thing is that council supports entering into sole source negotiations with Michael Billington and Root and Seed LLC. And after council approves that, then we can put together the contract. And so the contract, I mean, they're all boilerplate. It would just be a boilerplate contract with this as attachment A and the scope of work. And so the only other thing that really needs to get filled in is his social security number or the EIN, the rate of pay and signatures.
Greg.
Yeah, a couple quick questions on the justification for sole source. One is the approximate total amount of the contract would be what, and the justification for sole source would be what. And the reason I'm concerned about those two is because in looking at the scope of work that's in here, everything that's in here is great. What concerns me is what's missing. And that is the marketing, if you will, to take product to market. To the degree that we consume it ourselves, that's not going to be an issue or a problem. But to the degree that we are going to try to take product to market, that's a whole art all by itself, and I don't see anything in here covering that. So I'm hoping that the plan or there is funding that has been identified that would help fill in that gap.
Okay, the first question was the reason for sole source. Is that right, Councilman Dumontier?
Yes.
The reason for sole source is because this has been an ongoing project. And so, like I said, Michael helped us write the Native American Ag Fund grant. He's done work since that time to really develop everything you see in that packet. He's got a lot of momentum with us, with potential collaborators like I think can't remember the farm's name, but it's a really good model out there. And so he's ready to hit the ground running. I mean, it's just, like I said, a continuation of the work. And so I think he's in a really unique position to continue the work. And as we all know, the winter's been pretty light. So I think things are ready to get going. The grant calls for things to get going in March. And so I think that everything has just kind of dovetailed into each other. And so it just seems like he's in a really unique position. The second question I think you asked was the funding level. And so in the Native American Ag Fund grant, we allocated $80,000 per year for 2 contractors. And then they can probably enter into subcontract agreements if needed for different activities. And so Tim's got a pretty good sense of what he would need for his piece, and Michael has a pretty good sense, but I think, yeah, we would like to just continue to think about what the allocation of the $80,000 per year for a total of $160,000 over the course of 2 years looks like. And then was there one more question after that?
Yeah, and let me back up first, because it sounds to me like the principal reason for the sole source contract really goes to the timing. In other words, there's a growing season that nobody can control. So when the growing season happens, you have to be ready for it and hit it. Otherwise, everything falls apart. So that part I understand. And the total budget amount that I understand we're talking about is 80,000 a year over 2 years. Is that correct?
That's specifically for the contractors. There's other funding in there for equipment, things like that. I'd have to go back and refresh my memory, but there's a lot of equipment allocated in there too. So, but yeah, you're right on the contractors, 80,000, and we had originally thought 40 per, but Tim's going to be underneath that, and so we're probably looking at probably 60-20 for the breakdown.
Okay, and the last part of that goes to the everything that is going into this that is going to create production. I don't see anything in here that shows how we are going to get from production to the marketplace. And since it's produce, those are pretty critical issues because timing is unlike just about any other commodity. So it's got to go from field to the buyer in a very short order. So how is that going to be covered?
I think we've got some really good leads. I mean, we've had some experience selling directly to certain entities within the tribe, and then I think we even did some selling to Western Montana Growers Co-op. And so there's that. The original hope for food sovereignty was to start filling our own tribal programs with tribal foods. And so I think the first year we just got to get the soil health back in order, and then we've got to start growing. And so I'm not sure, I'd have to look back, but I don't think we're going to be having too much foods ready for market after the first year. I think really the second growing season, we could start venturing into that. And so we've got planning to do for sure. I mean, the majority of the first round of planning was really seeing what's out there, seeing the soil health, seeing the equipment, figuring out what we're going to plant, what's appropriate to plant. And then once we figure that out, then I think it's a good opportunity for us to look around and see how we're going to get that to market. And in the food sovereignty team's mind, the first market is the tribal program market. We have a pretty healthy budget for our tribal programs to purchase foods. And unfortunately, a lot of those foods are getting purchased by those big food distribution companies like Food Services of America. And so if we could start supplying our own programs with our own food, we've heard when we went to the Choctaw, Mississippi, they started the Choctaw Fresh program. And so we heard that it was hard to have competitive prices with other foods on the market, but their foods were locally grown by their own people and they were all organic. And so it was worth it to them. And so we'll have to see kind of where we end up on pricing, but that's certainly my hope is that we can purchase our own foods for our own tribal programs and utilize those tribal budgets to purchase our own foods. And then beyond that, there's been talk of doing some of those what are those CSAs for our membership, but then beyond that, like we have some relationships, and Michael has a lot of relationships. I mean, that was his career, was selling seeds and selling things on the open market to different purchasers. So I think we have some good ideas, but nothing on paper yet. Anything to add to that, Casey?
No, you touched on it really well, Jordan. And thank you, Councilman Demontier, for the question. This is one component of that larger Native American Agricultural Fund grant. And so there are things in that grant that are not included in this scope. For example, some of the community involvement is going to be community driven. I was just at an event with Sadie on Monday, and we had a really exciting side conversation about integrating the SQCC and their students into this venture and making that connection. In addition, there is an objective in that Native American Agricultural Fund to create training opportunities for financial management, as well as agricultural production. And so we're trying to attack it one thing at a time, and that might be just outside of the scope of what you see in front of you. But I do agree with you that that's an important component that we're focused on.
Very good.
Okay, thank you. All I was looking for, I guess, is some reassurance that in the sole source and the funding source issues coming together, that we did not end up painting ourselves in a corner where a year or two down the road, we have production and we're unable to get it to market because we didn't set aside any funding to be able to do that because we committed everything to a sole source contract that was production only. So it sounds like that is being covered and that we will be able to cross that bridge when we come to it about 2 or 3 years down the road. Is that correct?
That's certainly the hope, is that probably by a year or two, we're creating some really nice produce out there.
Good, thank you.
Tanya.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yep, we're right outside of Jalip, outside of Dixon, and I don't see any melons on here. Where are our melons at in this list? And that can come later. I know it's probably not a native plant, but they do seem to grow really well there, and they're pretty marketable if they're from that area. And then I was looking for a website for Root and Seed LLC, and I'm not locating one. So if they do have a website, if you could email that link to us, that would be great. I'd like to see some of their previous work. And then I get down to page 24 where it talks about an equipment list. And I guess my couple of questions for that was the items that are marked to sell, is that money going to go back into the food sovereignty program? And have we collaborated with lands because we have bought so much agricultural property? You know, when I see a baler that says it's keep or sell, it's easy to market, it's got high value. I want to make sure that we're taking care of our other properties if we're able to, with or just know where that money goes back to if we decide to sell. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilwoman Matt. Yeah, melons, we'll have to put that on the list. That's, yeah, I love those melons too. So as far as the equipment, that was Michael just doing an inventory out at Bison Springs. And so we're going to have to figure out kind of as a tribal organization what we want to do with that. That's not, I don't consider that food sovereignty's equipment. Lands Department had kept Bison Springs before the transfer over to food sovereignty, which just happened last month. And so when it says sell or keep, we're going to have to collaborate on that. And so certainly if we're collaborating, we're not going to be selling anything. And if we do sell it, we'll figure out how those go. That was just his observations when he was out there. So I don't think he was aware of the difference between our departments. So it's just a start.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh,
Just point of clarity, I thought Dana's been out there for over a year. Is that, am I misunderstanding?
Yeah, she had a caretaker, Councilman McDonald, Dana had a caretaker agreement with the Lands Department. And so just recently, the Lands Department transferred Bison Springs to food sovereignty. And so now that's under us. And so we'll have to figure out what our own caretaker agreement looks like.
go ahead.
Jordan, will you share that caretaker agreement with us once that's ready to go?
Yes.
Thank you.
The ask at hand is whether we'll support a toll contract. Sole source contract with Michael Billington and Root and Seed. Jamie?
Like I said, I think that the contract, I mean, the work and everything sounds great. I just want to assure that I'm not sure if this is the process for sole source, that he just gets our approval and then it goes through. So, but I'm in favor of it if it's gone through the right channels.
Well, we're not approving a contract at the moment, just the concept of moving forward sole source. Is my understanding.
I think it's, in my opinion, from working up there, this is cleaner to do it this way because it shouldn't be incumbent on contracts and grants to turn around and bring it back. So this probably takes a week or two off of the contracts. And like growing season has started, I think things are getting green, so.
Tom?
I'd make a motion to approve.
Motion by Tom to approve the pursuing a contract, a sole source contract with Michael Billington, second by Danielle. All in favor? We are unanimous with Carol out of the room.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I'm excited to get the Bison Springs farm rolling.
Thank you. We look forward to returning with the next report.
Way. Are we ready for Corky? Morning, Corky.
I'm still trying to get a hold of Russell, so.
Sorry, I was talk loud. Sorry about that. So we're applying for the MDT annual grant, operating grant. It's due tomorrow. We had some issues, but we got them all figured out. Most of it was my issues, so we got it taken care of. There's three parts to this operating grant that I need to get approved today. The first one is the operating grant, and I don't know what page that's on. 55? Hang on. Resolution, okay. So I'm talking about 56. And that part is the allocation that the state gives us is 138,000, and that's just for completely operating. And the next page, and then you can see where the budget's at. Any questions on the budget or the dollar amount of that 138?
Go ahead, Mark.
And I have no idea if this even applies, but the app that you guys use, is that forever? Or is that something that we have a contract with them that's gonna expire, or was that a grant? What?
The QR code for our scheduling?
Yeah, the scheduling.
Yeah, that's what's with us through the company that we're scheduled with, scheduling company with. And then on page 62 is the allocation from the state for, and it's a match dollars that they give to each transit agency in the state of Montana, and ours is worth 51,490. And then we also have to have a coordination plan, and that's on page 64. The coordination plan is with all the agencies in our area that says that we will work together. We help each other out, and we all do that every year and every day. So that's the third part of this resolution. And it spells it out under a CSKT, under the page 60, 65 would be our part, and then the other agencies throughout the area with their bits and pieces on the coordination plan.
We have one resolution with 3 parts. Motion by Martin to approve the resolution to go after these dollars and put this plan in place. Second by Jamie. Go ahead, Greg.
So I'm just curious. I mean, it's great in terms of the plan here and everything that's going on there. So I have a little bit of a nerdy issue with bypassing, if you will, an opportunity to go directly at the source of funds. So I'm curious, is this state funding or is this passed through federal funding?
It's passed through federal funding, passed through the state. We actually get both. And in a couple of weeks, I'll be back in with the $1 million. It's a little over $1 million for operating, and that comes directly from FTA. So there is 2 sets of funding. We just try to get all the funding we possibly can. And so if this was available to us, and that's why we go after this money every year. And it kind of keeps us in compliance. They check the drug and alcohol. They do all that stuff to check up on us, to make sure we are doing things correctly. So that's why this pass-through funding is, I think it's a good opportunity, keeps us all in line with all the federal stuff through the state. Because when you go federal direct, they don't check the drug and alcohol testing. They don't check vehicle wise where the state does. So keeps us in compliance.
Okay, so I'm 100% in favor of this with the caveat that we pursue or we exhaust, if you will, any possibilities for having a direct relationship with the federal government. I think we are capable as a sovereign nation of holding ourselves in compliance and don't need the state to provide that for us. But I appreciate your work and appreciate this program and yeah, as long as the funding is available through the state, why turn it down? So.
Thank you.
We have a motion by Martin and a second by Jamie. You got a question?
Yeah. One more, just compact.
Go ahead, Jamie.
I just wanted to ask, I am seconding it, but I know that you have the schedules and people have to call, is it 48 hours in advance or?
Same day. We can do same day now.
Okay, it is like
Missoula
a
trip-
call.
Yeah, Missoula trips takes another extra day because we have to get drivers to be able to do that and get the timing out. But most time, if you need to schedule a ride today, you can call in or you use the QR code. And you
Okay,
can schedule your own ride.
okay, awesome.
Yeah.
And just change the name of Dixon in your forms, please. Thank you.
All in favor? We're unanimous. Carol out of the room. Martin,
Hey, Corky, thank you for stepping up and being acting for the time you've done that. Yeah, appreciate it. Done a good job.
Well, thank you.
you too, Corky. Thank you.
So Katie will be next, and I rescheduled enrollment to meet with you guys on chairman's meeting because they had more issues than they had in the packet. And then I'll try and get them on Tuesday, so we're gonna take off enrollment today. And Russell still hasn't logged on.
Good morning, Katie. And Jennifer Russell can get the permit without us. He can get the permit directly from.
No, it needed council's approval for
Okay.
him to go out and do that. I just need a motion and then I can let him know and I could get him and Louis connected after
Okay.
you guys motion and approve.
Daniel,
Would we let everybody put signs regardless, or are we making an exception just for Mr. Cleveland?
we basically opened the door for most anybody as long as it stays within certain areas. In tribal elections, tribal members can put signs out anywhere on tribal land, but it's controlled for other elections. It's my understanding. Go ahead, Katie.
Pisquix. I previously had come in or virtually hopped onto my meeting for a request for the ethnobotanist position. And I realized since we have two new members of council, this is a good opportunity to give a background of my position and what I've been in charge of for following through with CSKT obligations and priorities. I am the tribal relations specialist. I work under Tony. Previously, I was with tribal preservation for just shy of 10 years, working for cultural resources. And so with this tribal relations position, we have gained some funding, a co-management agreement through the Good Neighbor Authority with Region 1 Forest Service. But with the entire region and kind of some of the reorganization that's coming through from DC for those regions, we've just tried to focus on the four surrounding forests of our reservation, which is Kootenai National Forest, Flathead, Lolo, and Bitterroot. And so I really focus on trying to spearhead any sort of future agreements, keeping CSKT's initiatives and obligations at a high priority, working with forest supervisors down to their staff level. So just to kind of go into next steps with a little bit of what we've got with that Good Neighbor Authority currently is part of my position is also to help create other funding to be able to include all of our resources. So what we are planning to do is using supplemental project agreements with each of the forests. If I can't get one with each of the forests, I think it's a good idea to focus on possibly two forests with multiple spas to be able to engage, let's say, tribal lands for weed spraying, a co-management for that. Or another example is having our doer team working with water ecologists, other folks that have a lot of that blending of those resource specialties. And so just recently, I was talking with another forest supervisor who is able to send me copies of her SPA agreement just to kind of give me an idea of how to fill in that purpose and need. not really inventing or recreating or inventing a wheel that's already there with that good neighbor that we've already got. And so I think that's a good opportunity. Yesterday, I was able to communicate back to the culture committee and some of the community members that we have there is that I think in order to make this continue as meaningful consultation, I think the folks that I really need to start with is the culture committees, the culture committee directors, get an idea of if we're talking about supplemental or very project specific, I think it's important to include our culture committee directors and our elders in the beginning stages to identify landscapes that really could have some high priority. We have other agreements with agencies where we're doing a lot of forest restoration, and that umbrella of that allows for a lot of different forest management strategies to be able to, what I'm focusing on and why I asked for that ethnobotanist is to be able to do some enhancement of our traditional foods and medicines out on landscapes that kind of need that little extra push. There's been a lot of destruction with previous timber industries, so another good idea to just kind of make it all big one packet. So with that ethnobotanist, working with personnel right now to kind of get those edits, everything taken care of so we can get ready to be able to advertise for that position. I've got all fingers and toes crossed that we've got a good amount of people that would be interested in that position. Recently, I have been meeting with the Office of Tribal Relations out of Washington. With this meeting, it's been quite interesting. What we have now been focusing on as a group, I'm not officially part of the Office of Tribal Relations, but they had invited tribal members to be able, who are working in these capacity as either liaisons or tribal relations specialists to join in this workshop with the Office of Tribal Relations, because what is coming up is the Forest Service Chief Schultz had asked Office of Tribal Relations to take another stab, an upgrade, an update for the Tribal Action Plan. They are calling this the Tribal Action Plan 2.0. And so this is supposed to be a living document that provides agencies guidance and assistance to fulfill their federal trust responsibilities, honoring treaty obligations, and support tribal self-determination. So as in my bubble, my new world working with tribal relations is there is a message that is coming from these ordinances that landscapes within the Forest Service need to be reassessed. Okay, that's not necessarily an issue, but the other part of that pendulum is the tribal relations side of it. So what is putting pressure on federally recognized tribes is this abundance of requests for consultations, trying to do that engagement. There's a lot of hit and miss with certain tribes throughout the nation. We're pretty fortunate that myself and Tony and others are able to look at these requests and kind of get a better idea of really what the ask and the need is, and really how we can help these agencies taking those new scary steps towards meaningful consultation. And so what our approach is to that is, even yesterday at the elders meeting, I had two staff members, one from the Lolo National Forest, the other from the management planning team for Lolo National Forest's management plan is kind of in this draft EIS stage. And so it was nice to be able to show the elders, like, I continue to talk about these great, wonderful people who actually care. They're taking the right steps. They're constantly asking questions of how they can do better of engagement on a staff to staff level. So I made a funny joke with the elder saying, like, you can pinch these people, they're real. You guys can see for yourself that these are the folks who are taking those measures, like myself, that we really care about what that engagement looks like. And so last week with the Lolo plan in the plan revision team, we were able to start our kickoff for our staff to staff engagement. So we had CSKT resource staff left it up to department heads to be able to figure out exactly who they would like in the room to be able to hear out what the objectives and the intent is for the staff-to-staff engagement. And so the outline of that is CSKT currently, we have our draft of our forest management plan. Lolo's in this draft EIS stage. We had the opportunity to add more context, better science, a better approach to really uplifting a lot of our tribal interests in our priorities. And so what we're planning to do with this staff-to-staff engagement is to be able to merge some of that intent and the priorities that CSKT has to kind of blend it with Lolo National Forest. And the idea of that is if this is a living document to tell program managers exactly what to expect and how to be able to work on these landscapes that even go past the border when we think about fire season as well, is that they know exactly what our priorities are. They know where our red flags are when we're asking for this government to government consultation process. So it's feels risky. It's super new. It's something that I'm hoping that if we can, as a CSKT and Lolo working group, if we can get this all outlined now, the next few agencies that we've got that also need updating for their management plans will have a set plan of how to do it, a process that makes it less lengthy, straight to the point. We know what we've got to do. And so to be able to do that is honestly, I don't know any other tribe for these meetings that I've been having that are doing exactly that. It's still a lot of sending emails and checking it on their box that they sent their email to the tribe. Working with the tribal relations group on the Region 1 and Region 4 level. Our contact is John Kinsner, and we might even have John help facilitate some of these staff-to-staff engagements just because John has a lot of background as well as cultural resource management, but as a tribal liaison for the Forest Service. And so I think he could kind of help give a little bit of guidance and context to what to expect with these engagements from a tribal level and a Forest Service level to be able to spearhead and get some things done. So we may or may not have John come into some of these meetings to just try to make sure that everything's kind of working on a nice fluid pace here. My last thing that I wanted to quickly bring up is I have had some correspondence with Karen Miskey out of the Sierra Club for the Sheep Creek mine out of Bitterroot National Forest. This could be something I could put on the agenda for another time. But I kind of wanted to understand it a little bit more. Karen had explained to me that I was identified as point of contact for that. I just wanted to make sure that if I am that point of contact, it's nothing more to just follow the process of thank you for providing additional information about this. Since Sierra Club isn't part of the Forest Service nonprofit that, you know, has had a long-lasting relationship of sending information to CSKT about some NEPA stuff that I'm just focusing on helping follow that process of what it looks like for our resource departments to possibly come up with a comment plan or something to present in front of tribal council if the next steps with Bitterroot National Forest is to go ahead and allow for the Sheep Creek mine. As I understand, there's still quite a bit of misunderstanding between elected officials and what Bitterroot National Forest and their elected city and county folks would like to have happen. Currently, Sheep Creek sits on the what they call the Fast 41 list. So this is something that's concerning, but Karen's somebody who offers a lot of opportunity to be able to go to public meetings, all that kind of stuff. I've told our legal that I won't take any steps to go to these public meetings or be the face of CSKT until we actually had a conversation to assure that that was something appropriate. End of report. That was quite a bit, but just trying to quickly give you guys an idea of what's going on in the bubble world of tribal relations. And there's not necessarily anything right now that probably would need formal action other than clarifying for the Sheep Creek stuff. But so far, everybody's got a great attitude about co-management, co-stewardship. Starting to get things moving for Missoula BLM field office. So far things have been going pretty smooth.
Great, good.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. You know, I've been, great orientation, by the way.
Thank
So
you.
I've been kind of watching a couple different presentations that you've done over the last couple of months, and all I knew is that you were doing a good job, but I didn't really know why. So that helps. But I just wanted to reinforce the support that I have for those two issues that you had talked about. First, the communications with the U.S. Forest Service. I wish I had $1 for every time prior to consultation being established that we would go forward to the U.S. Forest Service and try to advocate for, you know, a position one way or the other, or interest in trying to open up communications, and having them turn around and tell us, you really don't know what you're asking for, because if you open that door, you're going to get bombarded with everything and blah, blah, blah. You're not going to be able to handle it, so forth and so on. So the fact that you're staying on top of that, shuts all those guys up in my memory, so I appreciate that. I also really appreciate the ethnobotanist approach. There are many aspects to our culture, and I don't mean this in a critical sense at all, because language is very important, but you'd almost think, either from looking at our budget or looking at our activity, that the only aspect or facet to our culture is language, because we've focused so much effort, which is great that we're doing that, but there are other important parts, and traditional plants and uses, that part of our culture is one that is in critical danger of being lost. And so any efforts that we can do to preserve that side of our culture, I think, is critical for us right now, timing wise. So I thank you for bringing that issue forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Katie, thank you for coming in. You're doing a great job. And it would be overwhelming for you if every forest that I'd like us to be engaged in, we were fully engaged in, because the depth of our protectable interest in our Aboriginal landscape is huge. And so the issues on the Gallatin Forest, or the Beaverhead, or the Deer Lodge, or the Helena, you know, they're all critical. And when I worked for the Forest Service and BLM, the depth of things that I just became aware of in my tour of duty were immense. And when we talk about our subsistence gathering, hunting and gathering rights on all these landscapes, it's critical that we have a voice. So I would want to continue to try to expand, you know, and go for it. I know you're centered on the Bitterroot and the Lolo, Flathead, and Kootenai, but I mean, I don't know how many times we've tried to insert ourselves into the Custer Gallatin or the Beaverhead or Helena, because we have a lot of landscape out there that I'd like to see our people restored to, and protectable interests. So I'll be there cheering you on and trying to advocate for that as much as I can. Just appreciate your work.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that's another avenue for these supplemental project agreements, is possibly if we can identify even outside of just the four forests and start looking at other Aboriginal territories, get kind of specific with those additional forests. Maybe that could help produce a little bit more for the staff that is really required to be able to manage, or not manage, but have an idea of what type of management is being proposed out there, other than just our formal consultation letters that we see and on a staff to staff level. So I agree, making some mental notes for that.
Might be scary, but it's better than what was in the past. Thank you, Katie, very much.
Thank you.
So that means lands now? Good morning.
Morning.
Mark, do you want executive?
Yes, please. Go out of regular into executive.
Okay, so requesting council action on approval of resolutions for Clayton Matt for allotment 89, 92, 137, and 2956.
Motion by Martin to move forward with the resolution for Clayton Matt's properties, second by Tom. All in favor? We're good on that, unanimous?
Okay, and then the second one is I'm working on completing the easement for the Moe's Valley Road for the county in exchange for A Street and Big Arm. And I just need a clear council action in the minutes for the legal department. And I have that in the issue paper so that Abby can see. So I just need council to show action and describing a motion for clarity for that project. What page is that on? It's on page 130.
Page 130. So basically what we're looking for is a motion to provide for the right of way
Yeah,
and to accept the abandonment of.
yeah. So so I asked, yeah, so it'll state that council's in agreement with granting the 50-year easement to Lake County for the portion of Moe's Valley Road that traverses tribal land and are in agreement to waive the appraised fair market value in exchange for a portion of A Street located in Big Arm, Montana, which they are abandoning over to CSKT.
So to understand that we are getting something permanent by trading for something temporary?
Yep. And then that portion of the road accesses, they're going to be putting in a new bridge, and then that accesses the river honoring site. And so it's
Can we
good
do
for
more
the
of
community
those?
too. Yeah. Yeah, we can.
Was that a motion?
Okay.
Motion by Greg. Second by Tom. All in favor? We're unanimous.
Okay. Thank you.
Tara will be up next.
Okay, I'm not sure what page we're on. Oh, page 137. So this will be a request from Dandy Poe. He has utilized a spot located in Hot Springs on Tribal Track 42 or 4752, excuse me. He utilizes the site, he sells wood, cars, and he stores his equipment there. He just wants to up his permit for $450 a month with insurance and required bond.
Have you, one question before, motion by Martin. Is that a fair market rate?
Yes, because it's just for storage. And just to update everybody to where there are appraisals that are with the other commercial lots, they will be coming in. I don't know the exact date, but they are ordered. We're just waiting on those.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one question on these, and I appreciate your have a appraised price that would be out there, but I guess I would say that at the minimum. But are these advertised then when they come up for renewal?
So we can advertise them. That could be under the option. I believe that is an option on here. Oh no, we didn't add this. On the other ones it is. So we'll continue to, with these permits, to add that on, that if you're not wanting to renewal, you guys will have the option to ask that we advertise. And that's part of the permit process.
Well,
So it'd be clearly up to you guys with the options.
I guess it's because they're like 1 year.
Right.
The assumption is that it would be re-advertised and then we'd set a minimum price and then the tribal member interest would drive what the end product rent would be.
Right. And
the high bid.
in the past, we had been doing advertisements. The hard part is we weren't getting very many inquiries, especially places like Hot Springs that had sat vacant for a good, 5 years. And we'd advertise that location quite a bit. Same things with a lot of these other ones, like in Ronan. We had 4 people that bid on that, but she's been pretty tribal member, awesome with that. So she's wanting to continue to possibly go into something a little bit longer. We could always re-advertise, but when we have a tribal member that's successful, I feel like we should continue to keep them there. But that's, we can always add that option there. You guys want it to advertise.
If I remember right, this property, when it was advertised, we had 2 bidders on it that had equal bids, and we had to have sort of a bid off on this.
It did. We had one more bid off. Yep.
So there's actually competition for this site.
Yep. And that, like I said, and that was after it sat vacant for 5 years. And then finally it was like, woohoo. So,
We
yeah.
got Greg and then
But
Carol.
you may finish. Is there another reason why we wouldn't have a longer term if that's an issue?
It's kind of up to them. So like a lot of times they want longer terms for funding wise. But a lot of times like she was going into it and that building was not in the best shape. It was kind of falling apart. So she actually in turn did a lot of remodeling in there, things like that, in lieu of rental payments for that. Now, Yes, Crystal. And then since then, she's now become successful. Now they've gotten that place kind of up to par. She's wanting a longer lease. But a lot of times with the shorter ones, she's looking for maybe other options for a better building.
When you mentioned that improvements, is that part of the lease that they can
Yes.
do improvements and versus rental?
Yep, we had that in the language. And it was approved through council.
Which makes the property more valuable.
Yep, which
So the
for
rent
us,
should be more.
I know, which that's exactly it, that's where these appraisals, when they come back, we'll have that info.
And then like with the Dan DePoe one, he did only want it for 1 year to see if it was gonna be a viable business. It's turning out to be, so that's why he wants to do another 1 year. But we can, in option 3 of the council on this is that could be denied by council right now, that we would have to advertise. Starting out at the $450 a month rental. And we'd advertise for so many days.
I got Greg and then I got Carol.
Do we have a motion on the floor? Okay, so if I would be in favor of moving forward with the 1 year with the addition in that it would be advertised at that point forward.
Carol.
Has to do with a lease that a non-member has at the Dairy Queen, and I'm not talking about the Dairy Queen, but I'm talking about the coffee shop. When does that ever come up for tribal members to?
That is actually part of Travis's lease also.
So he gets to have, is he subleasing that?
Yeah, so that's actually, that whole property right there is that's his business and the Dairy Queen. And it's in that, his business lease.
Yeah, he has a lock on that. Basically, I mean, unless somebody wanted to come in and, is it put out to bid?
No, I believe he owns that shop.
But we own the land.
Yeah, so he pays on that for that lease and for the Dairy Queen, all on that same business lease.
But he's subleasing?
Well, it's part of the rental, so yeah.
It's the appraised value of the rental that's on that one, under the CPI, everything. That right there, if an interested party would be interested in getting the coffee shop there to take it over as management, they would have to work with
Them?
Travis himself.
Okay.
To get back to Dan's lease, Martin was making a motion to start with. Say again, Martin?
Said I did make a motion. There was no starting to. It was,
Yes.
there's a motion on the floor, so.
Yeah.
So does that include the
Addition.
stipulation that it be advertised? So it's a 1 year revocable permit and then it's going to be advertised?
My motion was to approve what was here.
Option 1.
And if it's a 1 year lease, then that would be the next time that we would advertise it.
Yep, I'll add that to the language that after this next coming term, it would be advertised. Yep, I have that.
So do we need a second?
Yeah, we need a second. Second. Motion by Martin to approve option one, second by Greg. All in favor? Yeah, we got 6-4 and Carol abstained.
Okay, I know this one I just have to bring up. It's the city of Polson wants to do, some filming. They're just doing a lot of different CPS obligations and stuff for their, advertisements and things. What they were wanting to know is if they had NRD's building or CSKT buildings in the background, would they need approval, from tribal council for that? And I didn't have an answer because I don't think so, but I just figured I'd ask because they just were curious. Yeah. And that's kind of what me and Rob are saying, but I was like, just to get it clarified. I know, right? It's kind of weird. I don't think.
Where are they standing?
So they'll be, yeah, so that's what I'm saying, like on just the main streets, basically showing their buildings, and then I think our buildings might just be in the background. So we think it should be okay, but I just wanted clarification. We'll go put out some flags and just not. Okay, I just wanted that clarified. All right, thanks, guys.
Got all actions.
I'm just looking for approval to advertise the 2026 agricultural spring bid. There's a total of 91 leases up for potential bid. 25 of them are allotments, 66 are our tribal tracts. So I just need approval to advertise the spring bid for 4 weeks.
Motion.
Motion by Jamie. Second by Danny. All in favor? Got 6-4. Greg is out of the room.
Next action item up is a request for Western Area Council group permit being waived to do mapping of the Medusa Head in the North Valley Creek site and to do a targeted spray of rush skeleton weed in the Big Draw and Urban Flats area. The Western Area Council is part of the Montana Weed Association that assists all county weed districts in efforts, and the reservation is part of the Western Montana Weed Association. They have came in the past just to do the rush skeleton weed, but with the return outbreak in the North Valley Creek, they were wanting to come up and do a big group involvement there. We are just making sure that this is meeting all the requirements for us to get that information. As we do, we will be talking with NRD to get that waived. We just wanted to give council an update that we will have an influx of professional individuals coming out doing mapping of the entire Medusa Head site, which is roughly acres.
Roughly 2,000 acres.
And they'll be doing that. They'll be doing that all in a couple days, and then they'll transition over to the rush skeleton weed and be walking and monitoring at the same time and treating that weed at no expense to the tribes. And we would ask permission to approve the request.
This has happened before. I mean, is this typical?
For the rush skeleton weed, yes, it has happened before. This will be the first time we bring them in on the Medusa Head site.
Yes, this has happened in 2018 and again in 2023.
Okay, and then there's coordination with NRD or the game wardens.
Greg.
So we're doing both North Valley and Irvin in one swell hoop?
This is actually being coordinated throughout the Western Area Council. We're trying to get our map, our calendar set up and ready. So when they can come in, we will do it last time it was in June, and the time before that was the middle of July. So we're just asking for requests to get us on the calendar to where we can get to it.
And they'll be in conjunction at the same time on two different sites.
Motion.
Motion by Greg to approve the request. Second by Martin. All in favor? Unanimous.
Those are all the action items, but we would request at this time if we were able to get back into executive just to go over any of the other further discussion.
Before we lose quorum, I want to make a motion to approve Mr. Cleveland to put signs on our properties that we allow candidate signs on. And so that way it's just a little easier for Louis to take that and run with it. So that's my motion.
Motion by Martin, second by Jamie to allow Mr. Cleveland to put signs in the usual place that candidates put sign.
But still pay the fee.
Pay for the permit fee. All in favor?
No, that's not my second.
We're unanimous. With that, we will go out of regular into executive.